Hello and welcome to Wide Open Throttle. I'm here with the usual motley crew from MotorTrend this week, and we've got a range of topics that are going to take us all around the world. And we're going to start with China, and both you, Jonny, and you, Mike, have been to China in the past few weeks, driving of all things Bentleys. So what was it all about, Mike?
In China, Bentley, it's the second biggest market that they have right beside the US. They sold 2,200 cars last year there. 60% of those cars last year were Flying Spurs. And the typical Flying Spur buyer in China is a mid to late 30s captain of industry.
Millionaires.
Yes,
Millionaires in China.
Who's being chauffeured in the back of the Flying Spur. And,
I feel like an underachiever.
Yeah, and I mean, not only, you said 60% of the Bentleys sold are Flying Spurs, but that's the biggest market for the Flying Spur is China. And actually, for a few months, China eclipsed the U.S. as the biggest Bentley market. But in China, they love the the long wheelbase with the kind of executive package in the back, so you can be chauffeured around. And I always thought that you've heard that Chinese like long wheelbase cars, and I thought it was because labor's so cheap, you can just buy yourself a chauffeur.
Buy yourself.
Get a chauffeur, whatever.
You go to the chauffeur stop.
it comes with the car.
I wouldn't be shocked. It's a weird place over there, but
They have different coloured uniforms that you can buy.
Probably. But anyways,
Match the paint.
but no, the reason why they like to be chauffeured around is because the driving sucks over there.
Yeah.
I mean, the Beijing, 30 million people or whatever it is.
No visibility.
No, yeah. The pollution's so bad, but I couldn't figure out why is everyone always driving 30 miles an hour. It's because if you go faster than that, you're dead. There's no shoulders. People just stop. If you need to pull over, you just stop your car in an apex of a corner. Like,
I mean, the roads themselves were actually pretty good. And when we did have a chance to drive the car a little bit, it actually drove pretty well for a 5,500-pound sedan, 616 horsepower. You put the hammer down and that thing takes off.
Oh, it flies.
So it's
Absolutely flies.
pretty cool car overall.
I like the exterior styling when I saw the car first, because I think it's a much more elegant and flowing car than the old Continental Flying Spur, as it used to be called.
You can tell the difference?
You can absolutely tell the difference.
Okay, so their big thing is they want to separate the Continental and the Flying Spur. So the old Flying Spur was actually called the Continental Flying Spur. Now it's just the Flying Spur. And they did a couple of things, like they took the big headlights from the center, like all Bentleys have, and they put them on the outside, kind of like the wide body Pontiac. You push everything out to the corners. They changed the taillights, which I don't like. They kind of look like E-Class taillights. And then it's all new sheet metal, man. They were saying that like the rear haunch crease is so sharp that Mr. Winterkorn, whenever he walks by it, he rubs it because he's so impressed that they were able to machine that.
It is a pretty impressive piece of stamping. I mean, the radius on that crease is crazy and really hard to manage.
It is.
Great, but I
They
mean,
screwed up the
this is a Bentley here. What's the interior like?
Okay, that's the biggest actual difference between the Continental and the Flying Spurs. There's 600 different pieces in the interior. The greatest of which is, it's very hard to explain, but there's this flat piece of leather that kind of runs around the entire cabin. It's about this wide. And it's perfect. I don't know why no one has thought of this, but for just putting your arm on, it's absolutely perfect. And then, it's got every bell and whistle and luxury feature. And
Will China be the biggest market for this car? Will America
definitely
still be able to edge it ahead?
Well, I think
For the Flying Spur,
for the
it'll be
Flying
big.
Spur, it'll be China, but I think they're going to sell more actually. Because I think, as you said, it's much better looking. I thought the last Flying Spur just nice
a bit
car, but
frumpy.
It looked like a straight
yeah, it was
Continental, yeah.
frumpy. It's too conservative, and this is like there's an elegance and a beauty to it.
So while on China, interestingly enough, when I was there a few years ago, we went down to Hangzhou, which is a city that people go down, has some lakes, some nice old palaces and things like that. And there I saw the biggest Lamborghini dealership I'd seen outside of North America. I mean, in China, which brings us nicely to our next subject, Lamborghini. Lamborghini turns 50 this year. Ferruccio Lamborghini, an Italian industrialist who built air conditioning, tractors, was so annoyed with the quality and the service of his Ferrari that he decided to build his own supercar. I mean, how hard can it be? So here we are, 50 years later. Lamborghini's done some of the most iconic cars for any enthusiast. I mean, who didn't have a Countach poster on the wall of their bedroom? Where does Lamborghini go from here? How does it play on its history? Thoughts?
Well, that's a very good question, because I wonder if Lamborghini is a little bit trapped by their history, the same way that Porsche can never get away from the 911. since the Countach, every Lamborghini has been a wild-looking wedge. Right? I mean, they've kind of been stuck with wedges ever since, and they keep making them more and more radical, but where do you go from there?
Well, there's a reason why they keep doing it, and it works.
It's true.
I mean, they keep selling these cars like crazy.
People always forget this about the car business, is that it's a business, and you know what sells? Aventadors. Like, you know, they were sold, that car, before anyone even opened the door, they sold 18 months of them, you know, right? I mean, and by the way, they're 400 grand a pop. So why mess with success?
I interviewed Stefan Winkelmann, the CEO.
I've done that.
Yeah. You've done that. You know how that goes. But I interviewed him in New York, and he is adamant that the next product has to be an SUV. They want to build that. What was it? Urus concept.
The world needs more Lamborghini SUVs.
Well,
True.
think about their view of the world.
Can't believe we're in agreement.
No, but think about their view of the world. It's China, it's Russia, it's the Middle East,
And
and
us.
even
And
here,
America.
right?
Yeah.
Just
Those
like
four
with Bentley.
markets alone will take all those Lamborghini SUVs Lamborghini can build, and they'll make a lot of money out of them, and that'll help fund the development of Aventadors and
And I
Gallardos.
told this to Durheimer because, you know, he was saying, what do you think of the Urus? And I said, it doesn't really matter what I think, but what I'll tell you is AMG for a decade waffled on putting a V12 into the G-Wagon. They were like, we could do it, but they finally decided to do it. They said, okay, and those are 212,000 euros each to start. They said, in 10 years, we figure we'll sell 500 of them. They sold over 400 in the first 6 months of production. It's by far the most profitable car in the history of AMG, if not Mercedes.
Or the automobile.
Or the automobile. You know what I mean? So there is a huge market, I mean, relatively, for $200,000, $300,000 SUVs. Why not?
As much as this has been a great business success, I wish we could go back to the other Lamborghini history, the one with the Espada and the Miura. Those were beautiful cars, and sure, they didn't have the business success that the Countach's had. Didn't make pubescent teenagers love them, but those are the cars I like more.
But I just wonder, to your point, how much further can Lamborghini stretch extreme?
Well, that Egoista was a perfect example. This what Walter de Silva called it hedonism taken to the extreme, and I think really you can say that about Lamborghini in the past maybe 20 years or so.
Well, and so that's interesting because when we had the Aventador at Best Driver's Car last year, the car was a disappointment. The brakes faded after
It was 9th out of 9.
2 laps. The ride was appalling, and the single clutch transmission was slower than a wet weekend in Cleveland. And so the Lamborghini people were justifiably upset. I wrote about it in a column, I think, and it went all the way to the top, and there were frantic phone calls from Italy back to here, I'd done them wrong. But the point is the car wasn't good enough. Does a Lamborghini have to have the performance and capability, refinement and execution of, say, a Ferrari or a McLaren, or does it just have to look good?
Apparently it doesn't. They just have to look crazy and they'll sell.
All a Lamborghini has to do is it has to be able to go from 0 to about 120 and scare the hell out of a hot chick next to the guy once a month, and that's it.
Well, I think Ferruccio Lamborghini is probably spinning at about 9,000 RPM in his grave. But the idea of his cars that were going to be better than Ferrari actually being regarded as better arrivals cars than drivers' cars. But speaking of drivers' cars, I'm just back from Circuit of the Americas where I saw the V8 Supercars do their first ever race in North America. And I was pretty excited. I mean, hometown feelings and all that sort of thing. But I've been running around asking every American who ever watched what they thought. So guys, what did you think? Was it that good?
I was blown away.
No, I mean, I guess, obviously we're going to need more exposure to it before we're excited about it. But I'm a little, not even really sure of the rules. I remember they were production based, but now they're on some kind of common car of the future chassis.
It's like NASCAR, but it's not. The cars all have a common wheelbase. They have common points at which the aerodynamic aids are set. They must use a block from the manufacturer. but they're all rear drive. They all share the same transaxle gearbox, same rear suspension, same
So
brakes.
it's like a world touring car.
Kind of, yeah.
But with big V8s and
But with big real engines. I mean, all
So
over the
they're like stock cars, like NASCARs, where they're like mattresses. I mean, they're moving around like crazy.
They move around. The American guys couldn't believe. Like Randy Pobst was there because he was racing the K-Pax Volvo in the Pirelli World Challenge, and he said, "Man, these guys should bounce these cars off the curbs. We can't do that at all."
So my question is, could you use this series as a template for a style of racing in North America?
Oh, absolutely. And Roland Dane, who runs the Red Bull racing team, which is a hugely successful team there, he was one of the architects behind this Car of the Future platform. And yes, it has been designed so that you could conceivably build a Camaro, a Mustang, a Challenger, or the next generation of those cars. Using the same rules. I mean, and to me, how fantastic would it be if we could have V8 supercars in America, which would almost be like a Trans Am series. Your V8 supercars in Australia, and then once a year you bring the two together for an international series, Australia versus the USA.
And it'd be great to see a Camaro Mustang and Challenger on the track duking it out.
Well, and it's great racing too, because I've just only seen a little bit of it, unfortunately, but there's a lot more body contact, it seems like, in V8 supercars. I mean, NASCAR, you know, people run into walls occasionally, but they don't really kind of bump off of each other all that often, intentionally at least.
What's that old line out of Days of Thunder? Rubbing is racing. Well, I looked at Caruso's car after the first day. He'd been racing because I don't think there was a straight panel on it. Like, he had wheel marks all down one side and all up the other side. So yeah, those guys really go at it. That's all we've got time for this week on Wide Open Throttle. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.